Hey guys, my name is Mike. I'm a comic book artist. Today I'm going to show you how to prepare your inks for digital coloring. Now, whether you're sending them off to a colorist or you're going to color them yourself, the method that I'm going to show you certainly isn't the only method, but it's the one that I use and that yields the best result and that preserves the art. So what I have here is a scan of 11 by 17 Bristol that is a commission. So this is going to get, as you can see, there's pencils up here. This is going to get traditionally colored and then sent off. But I always scan the line art just in case I want to turn it into a print. This one's a pretty good candidate to turn into a print. You know, maybe get a bunch of rain and some lightning in the background and make it very dramatic. But we need to prepare the lines because this is just a raw scan. You can see the blue lines from the Bristol board, and then there's pencils up here that are part of the commission, but that aren't going to be. I mean, I'm going to delete this stuff, but I don't want to do that just yet because I want you to see what happens. If you just send this raw data to a colorist, what they're probably going to do is they're going to go to this and they're going to convert this layer to monochrome. Now what that does is it splits the difference in all the values and decides whether the pixels are either black or white. So you get 100% black and 100% white. That's all there is right here. Even though this looks kind of gray, it's just an optical illusion. That's just splatters of black pixels. This seems like an okay idea, and zoomed out, it doesn't make that big of a difference. But when you zoom in on these lines, now they've basically become pencil lines. They're super textured, and you've lost a ton of data in the art. And maybe with my kind of micron and G pen thin-lined line art style, it's not a big deal. But if this was bigger, if there was any dry brush on here or any real heavy, thicker, I mean, look what happens to thicker ink right here, like on Batman's chest. Like, imagine if you had your big lines were broken up like that. If you had a kind of a cartoon style that had thick, sweeping, smooth lines, it would really destroy that art. It would destroy the look. So it's depending on the art style whether or not you should do it. But there's a better way. Watch if I back this up. Notice that there's data in all these lines. Now it did wash out all of this kind of. You can see the eraser marks in here, and especially here where I change the angle. And sometimes I don't follow the pencils exactly, and because of that, the board. I mean, I used like a gum eraser, which isn't really the best way to do it, but it's the quickest way to just wipe over the whole thing. But we can fix that. Let's concentrate on this area right here since it's so apparent. And we're going to go to Layer, New Correction Layer, and you don't have to do this as a correction layer. You can just open up a tone curve, and it works the same in Photoshop. Now these pixels are light, and we just want to bring up the more you drag this bar up to the top, the more you're going to turn light gray pixels to white. So you're creating a gradient map, in a sense. Not in a sense, that's really what you're doing. And you can think of this as a gradient map. This works exactly like a gradient map, provided there's not any color on the image, in which case it's very different. So we've got most of that gone. I don't know that I need to get all of it out. There's a good amount. And then now, there's still all this other data in here, all these darkish gray pixels. If we just turn those black, or pretty close to black, notice that there's a range here. See how this range along this slope is creating pixels that are not black, but are close to black. And that's what you want. You want some of that gray in there. That's perfectly fine. We can still do color holds over the top, and that's a big motivation. It's easier to do color holds for the colorist if they just swap everything to black pixels. Then they can just put a clipping mask on top and paint. But you can certainly do color holds on a layer that's set to multiply instead of set to normal. So now we have mostly black pixels, and we can take take a soft eraser and whoops, that's on the tone curve. Do this. Just going to erase all those pencils. And there were some blue lines over here. This is just sort of from the scanner. You can redraw this stuff real fast, no big deal. So this is going to be a little different than Photoshop if you're working in Photoshop. I am going to convert brightness to opacity. So all of the white pixels are going to become 100% transparent, and anything that is not white, the more black it is, the darker it is, the less transparent, or the less transparent it will become. So you can see I saw that there was like a single row of black pixels in there that I couldn't see. This is effectively making your normal layer like multiply without having to do it. You can just set the layer to multiply in Photoshop if you want. If that, oops. So now I have a layer clipped on the top, and I could just do whatever color holds I wanted here, even though some of those pixels are gray. It's perfectly fine. So super simple, super easy. All you would need to do now is put a layer below, go to white, fill that layer, and you have inks that are ready to send off to your colorist. I would even send it off with a masked layer over the top so that they don't mess up the holds and end up having the problem with it, if you don't know how to do a color hold with a multiply layer and you get a shadow, like in Photoshop, if you've ever seen that, there'll be a shadow inside the black. The way that multiply works is that the higher the value, so the closer to white that a pixel is, the higher the percentage of transparency. So here the transparency is 0. Here it's half transparent. It's like having a pixel with 50% opacity, and then 90%, and then 100%. You can't even see it when it's white. So if whatever pixels are close to black but aren't black, around the edges where you have your flats, what you're going to see, if the flats aren't butted right against the pixels, you'll see a shadow. So the way that you do that is you just copy out, you select all of those pixels, you select all of the pixels on the ink layer, and then you use that selection to paint your holds over. Does that make I hope that makes sense. It's very simple, but it's something so many people search for and can't figure out how to do color holds with multiply mode. I guess I'll just make that video now that it's come to mind. So check in a day or so once I come up with an appropriate example to do that. But yeah, this is the easiest way outside of the manual stuff where you're going to redraw and erase stuff and whatever. But this is a way to make your art look the best and look the way you want to make it look. Hopefully some colorists see this video and you do that. People who don't draw, who are just painters or what have you. Because they might, when I changed this right to monochrome, like your eye doesn't pick up an immediate difference. It's only when you zoom in and you really start examining their artwork that you see how much you've changed it. And if we look now, look at how dark and deep these lines are, even though almost all of those white pixels are gone. There's a little bit, this was actually an eraser mark, but I think that looks pretty cool. And this is an eraser mark through here. And it's just the more that you drag that white part up in the tone curve, the more you'll remove those lighter pixels. And that's what you are ultimately wanting to do. So if you want this file to color, it will be up on my DeviantArt page, which is linked below. Also, if you have questions about comic book making, about process, about whatever, digital art wise, go ahead and send them to me via Twitter or leave them in a comment below. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope it's been helpful.